Thank you very much for the kind introduction. One of the things that I often struggle with is sometimes I think they're probably talking about my twin brother, not necessarily me. So I'll pass that information on to my twin brother in terms of the kind remarks. Professor Sandkett, Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, once a teacher, always a teacher. And so I'm not certain what else I can add to some of the things that you've said, but thanks. Dr. Henry, Director of the Center of Excellence in Teaching and Learning, thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening to share with you. Dr. Valdez, Chair. And then Pascal, thank you for your support of teachers and the work that teachers are doing at UWI. I consider it a privilege and an honor to really be here with you this evening for a number of reasons. Number one, it's nice to be kind of back home. I'm nearby in St. Vincent, and it's always an honor to speak to fellow colleagues about this thing that I refer to as, sometimes I'm wanting to switch it as learning and teaching rather than teaching and learning. But hopefully you understand where I'm going with that. This evening we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to try to share some things with you about some aspects of my practice and largely talk about technology in education and how that has changed the way we conduct education today. Sadly enough, some of the things that we do are reminiscent of a past era, and I want to suggest that education in the 21st century needs to be somewhat different than it used to be in the 19th century. This is kind of some of the things that I do, who Dave Yearwood is. And so before you tell me that I'm crazy, I want to acknowledge that I am a little bit crazy in terms of a West Indian in North Dakota trying to work with snow. And believe me, snow is not something that I like very much. I tolerate it, and that's about all I do. But these are some of the different things that I kind of play around with. I'm an avid cyclist. I believe in being outdoors. And so the easiest thing for me and my students is for them to come up with, why don't we take class outside? And we do that sometimes. Yeah.
Told me where it was and I went out there and they're like, it looked really nice too.
It did? Good, good. I was hoping it would look good.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get the free food and whatnot.
Yeah, it's great to get the free food.
Are you answering what I'm saying?
No, I'm on the phone with somebody. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude.
What was that?
I just said I was on the phone with somebody.
Oh, no.
The guy next to me asked me if I was talking. The guy, he's talking about me on the phone or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's weird. Yeah, no, we're getting on pretty soon. Yeah, me too.
Do you know what Terminal Spirit arrives in?
Yeah, I think it arrives in like Terminal 3.
Okay, so you could just text me which terminal it is?
Great, yeah, I'll text you later. If you didn't believe me, I'll double check and I'll just text you.
No, maybe it'll be okay. I'll just look when I get there.
Yeah, you can just look it up when you get there. That's probably a better idea.
How late is your flight?
It's like 20 minutes late, I think. I think it's probably going to be about 20 minutes.
Is that your sister with you?
No, I don't have a sister. Why do you ask?
You like answering the same question?
I'm sorry?
I feel like you're answering my question.
No, I'm talking to somebody. It's my friend.
I'm at the airport.
Yeah, me too. I'm sitting here at the airport, just waiting to get on the flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I got a B+ on that.
Oh, a B+. That's good. Congratulations. That is not bad. You know what? Reception's kind of bad over here. I'm going to move over. Oh, it's better here. It's definitely better here. No, it's delayed for probably 30 minutes.
What do you want for dinner?
Oh man, I can go for anything. Maybe a burger tonight, or burger and fries, pizza,
Where
something.
are the kids at?
I don't have kids. Why do you ask?
Hey, you want to go out later?
Yeah, definitely. Like as soon as I land, let's go out.
I'll meet you about 6 o'clock at the house.
Okay, fine. 6 at the house is great. That'd be perfect. Got to take the flight first. Oh, huh?
Oh, are you talking to me?
No, I'm on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No, it was just a girl next to me. She was just talking to me.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you later then.
Okay, perfect. Talk to you later. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Now,
you have to understand that I do this to my students. So if a phone rings and your phone rings, I may very well come up there and get it and start having a conversation with someone else, about you. Like, for instance, I might say, well, I'm the husband or the girlfriend or the boyfriend, and the person at the other end has to deal with that. Here's one of the things I'm getting at. Why do you suppose I put that video up there for you to look at? There's something that happened here. You were laughing. You were chatting. Why do you suppose I put that up there? I give away gifts, so this is not, education is not a spectator sport. So the first person to answer, why did I will bribe anybody for anything. You're not going to get this until you tell me why you think I put that up there. To make you laugh and chat. Okay. Could you pass it up, please? One of the things that amazes me sometimes is the fact that we don't include fun components in our educational practice. Education should be fun. Education should be interactive. And for some reason, we seem to kind of be working to take the fun out of education. Technology allows us to do a little bit of just that. Here I can use the medium of something that actually made it on national news, and something that is very well, nicely done. It sits out there in YouTube, you can borrow it and use it. And so faculty, why aren't we using these as ways to make connections with students? Understand something. We're talking about engaging students with technology. We cannot possibly engage anyone in any conversation with us unless we first connected with them. And that, frankly, was an attempt to connect with you. There are three things we're going to look at this evening, generally. And you can read these, so you probably had a chance to read them, and I'll be quiet and let you read them. You're saying, wait a minute, why didn't he read this to us? Well, you can read as well as I can, and so why should I be reading that back to you? Right? I want you to be engaged cognitively. I want you to interact with the content, and so we're going to talk a little bit about how engagement occurs and how engagement could be improved upon through the use of technology. I'm going to talk over some aspects of this, so bear with me as I kind of interject. This is what our physical classrooms look like, but it does not have to remain this way. I mean, there are ways to organize a classroom, even though we can't do it physically, we can certainly do it from a standpoint of small little groups to foster some sort of discussion. I want you to pay attention to some of the subtle messages there. many hours do you think this adds up to? Our students think they can multitask, but they're really poor at multitasking. Okay, I think you got the message from some aspects of what you see in there. I want you to note, just recall some of the things that you saw in terms of what students said about their classroom experiences. And then think of this pyramid and what that pyramid communicates. If we're talking about teaching and learning, who from that pyramid is doing most of the learning? Come on, faculty, together. The person at the top, the teacher. And so why aren't we doing the kinds of things in the classroom and creating the kind of classroom environments where we're down at the bottom here, where we're allowing students to take or play a role in their own education? Sadly enough, sometimes what happens is we assume all of the responsibility for students' education, and we don't allow them to be responsible for parts of it. Every once in a while, I have to remind students, you ever heard of the term homework? You know, there's a certain amount of homework that I do, and so there's a certain amount of homework that you need to be doing as well for us to be successful in this teaching and learning environment. And the teaching and learning environment should not be created such that the person who is getting the most from it is the person who's talking the most. Because really that's what happens. And in my class, I'm fairly comfortable with silence. I will pose a question, and typically, what's the average time that it takes for faculty to respond to their own questions? 5 seconds. In 4 seconds, they're getting ready, and the 5th one, they actually start responding. Allow students to process this information, because it takes some time for them to think about it. Create opportunities where they can utilize technology in the classroom to find the answers. They bring their portable tools to the classroom, and we can't and will never be able to compete with them. Note taken, as I mentioned yesterday, did not start with computers. Students have always been distracted in the classroom, but we have some fantastic tools that, if we plan carefully for their use in the classroom, can lead to some productive discussions in the classroom. Here is what I'm suggesting that we need to do. Move away from the left side, the column of information there, and move more to the right side of this table. Move away from being that sage on the stage to someone who basically uses the classroom differently. I no longer, with the tools that are available, use my class time to introduce content. I don't. And the reason I do not do that is because students do not need me for the content. I used to be, pre-17th century, the repository of content. I had it all up here, and so it was necessary for me to come to you and to say what the content is, inform you about the content. Today, what we need to be doing is teaching students how to retrieve the content. And in some cases, they know that better than us. But the one thing that they struggle with is evaluating that content and making meaningful use of the content and putting it in the context. And so my classrooms, or my practice really is, I create a lot of multimedia modules, and it's great to see the sort of modules that you're creating and putting out on Facebook. That's really encouraging. I pack the content in a learning management system. I pose questions for students to work on individually and together. And when they come to class, now the class time is for discussion about what-if scenarios. How come? Now what? So the classroom dynamics have to be changed from a place where we disseminate content to a place where we examine the content and talk about it. I picked on PowerPoint here just to make the point, some of the points relative to student engagement with technology. On my campus, for some reason, people think I hate PowerPoint, and I don't. I think I like PowerPoint to a certain extent. If you've read Ed Tuff's work, Ed Tuff talks about how PowerPoint is evil. And Ed Tuff really goes to town on PowerPoint. And I disagree with him a little bit, but who am I to disagree with Ed Tuff, who the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal label as the guru of graphics and graphical communication. He is that good that when you have a seminar, he puts on a seminar, it's filled. It's hard to get into one of his seminars. But bear with me for a little bit. When a student writes a bad essay, do I blame the pen? No. I blame the student. But I know where Ed is going with this. But here are 3 things that I've summarized, not necessarily from his work, but from some of my studies with technology and PowerPoint. We have a problem of cognitive overload and reductionism dissonance. And I want to show you some examples because I think you've seen this before. A lot of PowerPointers like that, right? Come on, how many of you do this kind of thing with PowerPoint once in a while? Nobody wants to admit to it. I think we all do. It's a wonderful medium for disseminating information. But there are some inherent problems with this. If you put this up there and students see this, what are students going to do? First thing they do, write it down. Why? Because the professor put it up there, it's important. Right? I don't blame them. The second thing that happens is you've relegated to the textbook to what that person says. I buy this expensive book and I don't read it. I never open it. Because now they think this is important. Right? There's another thing that with PowerPoint that I have a problem with. And this is, if you do this much work, what is left for students to do? Not a whole lot. Cognitive overload, too much text. Reductionism. This slide, I pulled this slide for a particular reason. Ed Tuff, actually under the Freedom of Information Act, had to force NASA to provide this slide. This slide is important for one other reason. Look at how many levels there are. How many do you count? You counted? 4 levels. She's saying, I have no clue what you're talking about. Okay, if you look up here with me, there is level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Got it? So that's how they organize PowerPoint sometimes, so that by the time you get to the 4th one, what are you thinking? You can always say pass. When I call in students in class, they have a chance to say pass, and you pick somebody to pass to. But you can't pass the 2nd time. So she just looked to you to pass you. What does the 4th level signify? What do you think when you see a 4th level of information? There's a prioritization here. So at that 4th level, it may not be that important. But if you look down here, you see this thing that says significant energy is required. This has to deal with the shuttle Columbia. And if the tile is damaged, meaning there is that particle penetration, test results show significant mass, and you go on. And this is the one here that I really want to get to, minor variations. What actually happened in the slide, when this was given as a presentation, everybody saw it and they didn't attribute any significance to number 4. In fact, number 4 was why the shuttle exploded. Reductionism. You have to be aware of what your slides might be communicating to students. I teach hydraulics, and I teach some applied engineering courses. And you look at this, and to me, this means something. To you, you're saying, what is this? You gotta say this out loud. Why is she taking issue with my subject matter content? I love this stuff. So we try to make this interesting to students, and we talk about Pascal's discovery and how hydraulics really work and the multiply and pose factor. The problem is cognitive dissonance. This really has no bearing here on this slide. It's on the slide, it looks like it's related. What's the relationship? So we can have cognitive overload, we can have textual image overload, so we can have text and image overload, and then we can have cognitive dissonance. And those are 3 issues, just 3. And there are many more I can pick on with regard to PowerPoint. Don't get me wrong, PowerPoint is actually a good program. It's not a bad program. However, I wish it was harder to use because more people wouldn't be using it incorrectly. I've made a statement on my campus about an awful lot of PowerPoint poisoning taking place, and for that I get labeled as a hater of PowerPoint. I'm not a neo-Luddite. Who is a Luddite, by the way? A Luddite is anybody, another gift here. Somebody what? Who hates technology. So a neo-Luddite by implication would be a modern day technology hater. You put those slides up there and what are you supposed to do with this? Now there's another slide that I should have put up here that would be interesting for you to look at. PowerPoint is used, lest you think it's only educators that are using PowerPoint badly. PowerPoint can be used as a form of punishment. There is a lady, the Baltimore Sun in New York, in Baltimore, actually the newspaper reported that when her children misbehaved on Sunday morning services, she had a PowerPoint ready to talk about the behavior and how they should fix or change the behavior. And her husband has to sit through this. Wow. So students look at the PowerPoint presentations and they say, okay, now what am I supposed to do with this? How is that supposed to be engaging me? One of the things, faculty, that we do that we're not sometimes acutely aware of. Sometimes I think we are guilty of using modern day technologies in old ways. Let me back up here a sec. When I've been around, and some of us have been around for a while, we used to use this thing called overhead transparencies. Right. How does that look any different than an overhead transparency? It doesn't. We aren't using the inherent properties of the new technologies in ways that are engaging to students. We need to introduce them in new and creative ways. Here is another example. I actually had an adjunct faculty who taught this class for me, Electromechanical Fundamentals, produced this slide. And he was really very proud of the slide, new faculty. How would you change this slide or modify the slide, especially since you think, you believe I don't like technology? Put a faculty in here. No, they don't want to put up their hands. Where are the faculty in here? I know they're here someplace. They're all over. Oh, master faculty. How would you change the slide? What would you do? There are a lot of ways to change this. You can employ some graphic elements. What else would you do? Less text, for sure, right? Well, here are I'm just going to zip through these. Some possible ways. Context, right? Using the power of technology. Oh, incidentally, do not be afraid to ask your students to create some of these things for you. You will be surprised. I don't have to do it all, and they can produce some work that's much better than some of the work that I can produce. And they're happy to share this with us. Build it in as part of an assignment. Create opportunities for engagement where they are engaged with the technology. They're using it actively. Not going to spend too much time on this. So that textual slide, I broke it up into 3 areas, and here are the 3 parts that can possibly be substituted for that. Okay. Anybody familiar with this? I give this away free if you want, actually. I created this and I send it to a lot of people. And in a lot of ways I can talk with you about how you create interactivity. So you are from Trinidad and Tobago. Pick a category. Which one? From this section down here. Which category? So you're a visitor. History. For what number? 300. History for 300. So we're going to go up here and... She's critiquing my work down here. What is this? You want to fix this? Write it up for me. Okay, so what's the answer? What's that? Okay, so I heard the answer down here. How many people agreed with him? He said, Eric Eustace Williams. You agree with him? Any disagreeers? Dr. Eric. Okay, now, let's take this one step further. When did he earn his degree? Where did he study? What was the nature of the subject matter content that he studied? What was the relevance of what he studied? You see how right there, I've got 4 questions that were spin off of. I actually use this in some of my classes where I take the lesson and I chunk it up. And so, in essence, when students know this is coming, they're divided up into groups. They have some clickers, and we use some apps to do that, as well as actual turning point clickers. And I gotta tell you, this is one of the most participative kinds of lessons that I have. Why? I am using technology that, frankly, seem to be grafted onto our students' hands. You can't even separate it from them. I'm using that technology to engage them with the content. Faculty, there are ways to have fun in education. There are ways to use modern technological tools to generate interest. And if, perchance, we don't have the answer, or there are serious discussions about the answer, I said, jump on your smartphone. Tell me what you find on the web, somewhere out there, because the answer exists. Let's have a conversation about the ethical value associated with whatever it is. You can do this. Yes, it takes some time, but it is well worth the effort in the long run. It really is. Teaching is a very honorable profession. Teaching makes all other professions possible. Teaching is not something we take for granted. Teaching is something we value, and we should continue to value. There is such a thing as scholarship of teaching and learning, and the documented evidence is what we really need. We need a matrix to be able to measure that adequately. And we need to be able to show our colleagues, and I do traditional research as well as scholarship research, show them how this is valuable. When students come to my classes, they don't necessarily select my class because of my research specialty. Sometimes they don't care about that. If they're graduate students, they care about it. They come to learn something. And it's not just about knowing and understanding. We need to be able to address what is it our students can do after they leave our classrooms, after they've been exposed to the content that we presented to them and had them participate in discussions about. Those are the critical aspects of educational practice. This goes wild because when you get one of these, man, everybody is fired up. I've had students who, at graduation, one guy, we debated this question in class, and 2 years later, this guy took this one class from me. 2 years later at graduation, he was still upset because he did not get 5 points. 5 lousy points! So I give him $1 for his 5 points. Seriously though, send me an email. I'll send that program to you with instructions. And I'll tell you about different ways in which you can use it. I actually developed, there was an app that was developed to use this. And I rated the app poorly. And about 2 months after I rated it on the web poorly, the manufacturer, the designer of the app contacted me and asked, okay, so how can we improve it? I helped the sucker improve it, and he turned around and he charged 99 cents for the thing after that. So I found another free one, you know. This is what educational practice should look like. Not a faculty standing in front of students and covering the content. And I know content is important. We have to cover the content. But if you're content focused, you will be teacher-centric. You will be getting all of the learning. And we have to find some ways to balance this and become a little bit more student-centered. You've seen this, you're familiar with instructional methodologies. The question to you is, how many of these are you using? You really shouldn't be using just one. There should be a mix. And in that mix, I want you to consider what John Medina, who's a molecular biologist, said about the attention span of our students. He actually studied imagery of students, and about 9 minutes and 30 seconds, John Medina says, you can see the decrease in cognitive activity taking place. That's how long it is. that we can hold our students' attention for. And then we have to switch, and we have to reconnect with them, and re-engage with them. That reconnection could be as simple as, okay, what do you understand or do you not understand? Or it can simply be, pull out pen and papers, close your book, we got a quiz. Oh man, you get students' attention right away. The thing is, though, those quizzes should be low stakes quizzes, because you want to use them as opportunities for remediation, right? Not necessarily to penalize students. Okay. The Socratic method everybody's familiar with, and it works really well. But there is such a thing as sometimes not asking the right questions. Why are you laughing, ma'am? I like the middle one there. You know, in the park, he's flying a kite with his son. You flying a kite? And the guy says, no, we're fishing for birds. Now, I know you're smart people, but what did I just do here? I just reconnected with you. Faculty, plan these reconnection activities throughout your chunk lectures or your interaction with students, because you need to get them back all on the same page. We assume when we walk into start a class that everybody's with us and you can start lecturing, and nothing could be further from the truth. Students come to our classroom with all sorts of things on their minds, much like we as faculty do when we go to a faculty meeting. You go to a meeting with the principal here. Oh, I probably don't want to use that as an example. Take the time to kind of make a connection with them so you can begin to engage them. If you do the connection activity just right, you will move from connection to engagement, and students would not even know when you did it. Remember the 3 forms of engagement. There's a quiz at the end here. Engagement with the content, student engagement with the faculty. Sometimes that's the only one we have. But here is the one based on that pyramid I showed you earlier on. Student engagement with their peers. Those 3 levels of engagements are really necessary. And technologies that students bring to the classroom with them can enable that to work rather well. Okay. So you don't want those kinds of questions. You want questions like possibly this one. Hold up your right hand when you're done reading. Right hand up. Oh, some of you are really slow readers. What is this tonight? Okay, the majority of you held your hand up. Thank you. Let's see. What are you thinking of? What came to mind when you saw that slide? What image was formed in your mind? A falcon. And where was the falcon? Falcon is what? A bird. Where did you guys go to school? There is a falcon. In our classes, we need to allow for stuff like this to happen. You can't open it wide up and then say, that's a stupid question. No, it is not. You know, or a stupid response. All responses are good. Let's discuss the merits of the response that our students come up with. Students have wonderful ideas. Students come to our classes and they're not a blank slate. They actually bring something to the classroom. It may be misguided. It may be some misplaced understanding about the content. But here is an opportunity for us to right that misunderstanding, to work with them to address it. And we can do that rather well if we engage in conversations with them, not purely lecturing at them. The lecture method is good. What I say to you is break it up into chunks. Maybe let our students do some of the lecturing. What was the phrase that I used earlier on? He or she who talks the most, learns the most. I teach a class technology and health, technology and society, and there's a health component. Now students read that and they say, you gotta be kidding. Dr. Yearwood, you can't be serious. And I would stare a student right in the face and I said, you have a problem with that statement? Because if I can't get a return on investment for my, whatever I'm paying for your surgery, then maybe I ought not to do the surgery. What is it I'm doing by raising this question? What do you think I'm doing? Humans are emotional creatures, and I will stop at nothing to get their attention and tug at their heartstring. Literally, nothing. Inside I'm holding back, man, because I don't believe this. Right? But what happens is, as a result, I can generate some questions for them to think about and for us to have a conversation around this issue of healthcare. You don't want to get me started in healthcare in America, but that's another matter. This looks somewhat grotesque, and it perhaps is. I use this to generate a conversation, a discussion. And sometimes I use this to set the context. Now, here's something I want you to ponder. If I use this screen, what is there for students to do but to copy it? The first one allows us to have a discussion. The second one focuses the discussion. The third one shuts down discussion. Faculty, do not provide all of that content, because if you do, there's nothing left for your students to do. Remember, we need to engage them. You can start off with the blank one and say, hey, this appeared in the national newspaper. What do you think this is all about? Crossword puzzles. I put these out, and I actually use a crossword puzzle like this to cover chapter 7 and 8, an entire class. They came up with the responses. I just generated that. We had the conversation. We referenced the text back and forth. There is no one way to do everything. And sometimes we're using one tool to accomplish a host of different tasks. In summary, what's that saying? What am I saying there? Somebody. What am I attempting to say here? Just shout it out. Don't all do it at once, one person at a time, please. Ma'am, what do you think that she's... You know, whenever you ask a question, you know how students don't look at you? What do you think about what you say? Everybody in class that come to class, and be prepared, he might call on you, man. You know, and if you bend your head down, I'm going to stoop down and make eye contact with you. You don't get off that easily. Students need to be involved in their own education. Whoever said that I'm responsible for everything? You're not. But yet, we act, and our practice suggests that we are. They have a role to play in this. These are some questions I want to leave you with as a wrap up. These three are extremely important. You know, if you're using technology in your classroom, I challenge faculty always when I do workshops that actually are hands-on workshops. What is the value added piece here? And if you can't identify that rather readily, my next question is then why are you using it? Because you need to think through this. All of my classes end this way. And so I'm going to take 10 seconds talking while you think about it, because I'm going to pick on somebody to tell me. You spent the last 20, 25 minutes or so with me in conversation about some aspect of technology and engaging students. You're not going to get that 25 minutes back. It's gone. What are you taking away with you? And don't try to tell me you're going to take everything away with you, because you can't, and you shouldn't. What one or two things that as a result of the conversation we've had, you would say, this is something that I think I'm going to try in my classroom? Just one or two. Change your practice gradually. Don't try to change it overnight. It's a disaster to try to do that. So, what one thing are you thinking about, sir? He's saying, I'm not a faculty, don't call on me. But what are you taking away with you? What are you thinking about? breaking things into chunks, manageable pieces. I can call on my colleague here. What are you taking away with you? Good. And with that, I thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to come and share with you.